welcome back to Speaking with Elvis podcast. This is the podcast of anything communication and public speaking. We are sharing strategies, we are sharing insight and techniques to make you a public speaker, an effective and captivating public speaker, and great communicator at that. This is also a podcast where we are sharing some of the insights, some of the mindset to help you on the personal development aspect, the philosophy of life that can help you improve yourself to improve your life. Because we know when we are better, everything else is better. Now, the subject of this podcast, of this episode, it's something that many people face when they are presenting in front of the people. And this is about freezing in mid presentation. Why do many people freeze when they are presenting in front of an audience, in front of a crowd? Why do many people, speaker, freeze? We are going to be sharing the reasons why people actually freeze and how to recover from that freeze, or maybe some of the solution to avoid being in the situation where we can freeze during a presentation. Now, I'm going to be sharing with you in this episode 4 reasons why people freeze while presenting in front of the crowd. The very first one is simply the lack of preparation. You see, when you do not prepare enough, you have the tendency to freeze in mid-presentation. When you do not know your subject inside and out, the likelihood of freezing is very high. So when you do not know your subject, just imagine that you are to present to a group or in front of a group, a subject that you are not well prepared. You will likely freeze during that presentation because you don't know that subject completely well. So that's why preparation, the solution to even avoid being in that situation of freezing while you're presenting, is simply to prepare. In my previous episode, I've talked about the idea of practicing. As a speaker, we have to practice. And I'm not talking about one time or even 5 times. I'm talking about dozens of times or tens of times of practice. Because you want to be able to be in the situation that you practice enough, that your body knows it better than your mind. That's where you want to find yourself in, to avoid being frozen during presentation. You have to practice. Yes, it doesn't matter the subject that you are actually presenting. Your goal, your objective is to practice enough that your mind knows it better than your mind, that you come to the level of automaticity, that you don't even think about what you're going to say sometimes, that your body goes to work just to deliver the presentation, the preparedness or the practice that you have done beforehand. So practicing enough is the first solution to avoid being in the situation that you even freeze. That was the very first reason people freeze during presentation, the lack of preparation. And the solution is simply to prepare. If you are to present, if you are to do a presentation in front of it, doesn't matter the crowd, doesn't matter the audience, you need to practice long enough that your body knows it better than your mind, that you wouldn't even have to think about what you would be saying. Your body would just go into this unconscious flow to deliver that which you have prepared for. That's the solution to avoid being frozen during the presentation. Now, the second one is when you memorize your speech. So that's one thing that many people do. Often there are a lot of people who do actually memorize their presentation or their speech. They spend time actually practicing, but they practice it wrong. Instead of practicing in the way that can allow them to deliver in such an effective and natural way, they tend to memorize the entire speech word for word. That's a huge mistake in public speaking or in any presentation for that matter. That's why when you memorize word for word, it's easy that when you forget the line, you completely get thrown off because you have practiced in such a way that is kind of linear in your brain. The way that you have practiced, you know that after here, this particular sentence, You have to see this next sentence. That's why everything is kind of linear, organized in your head. But the thing is, when you lose track of thought, you can easily freeze because you don't have any frame of reference to recover it. That's why, in the world of speaking, every great speaker will tell you that if you memorize, you are committing a public speaking sin. Public speaking sin for many reasons, not just for the reason of of freezing during presentation. There are a lot of other reasons that other reasons that when you memorize, it can throw you completely off. Because when you memorize something, you tend to recite it from your head, which means your focus, your concentration is in your mind in retrieving the order with which you have memorized your presentation. When you do that, you really do not appear natural. You really do not cast that wonderful eye contact to the audience, because the idea of a great engagement in public speaking is to be able to cast a warm eye contact to the audience, to give them that absolute engaging eye contact, to invite them in whatever that you are presenting. That's how you can engage people in the audience. But if you have memorized, most of the time, just think about it when we memorize things, right? So we have the tendency to even roll our eyes up a little bit to retrieve the information from our brain. And when we do that rolling of eyes, trying to think or remember what we have memorized, we lose sight of that eye contact. We do not connect at that moment. We lose the audience by just being in our head. And people can see it. People can easily see when you're not giving them attention. Because when you're speaking, it's not just the physicality that matters. It is also the energy that is transferred in that moment. Whether when you are casting an eye contact to one person in the audience, it's a kind of transfer of energy that is happening at that moment. So when you lose track of that, when that doesn't happen, you cannot send that energy toward the audience, and that audience doesn't receive that energy. And we know that in order to be engaged, an engaging conversation, an engaging communication or public speaking is when the speaker and the audience are engaged into this energetic transfer. And that's what it makes it a powerful presentation or powerful speech when that exchange of energy is being done, is happening. So when you are trying to retrieve the information in your mind because you have practiced it word for word, you have memorized, that's when you lose the audience. And at that moment, when you are thrown off the line, when you are thrown off your speech, it's not easy to recover. So that's why the solution to not freezing at this moment is actually practicing in such a way that you do not memorize your speech. Just think about it. How could you memorize if you are to give a keynote of 45 to 1 hour? How do you really memorize your speech word for word? It becomes absolutely an arduous task to be able to memorize a speech of 30, 40, or 1 hour speech. So that's why it's important. The solution to avoid that, to avoid being in that situation, is simply to practice in such a way that you only work from the point, the different point of the topic. You see, it's about the bullet point, right? You practice with bullet point, with different ideas that you will be talking about. That's how you can easily, for a speech that can last 20, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or even 1 hour, it's important to practice it with bullet point. You know that at this moment you're going to talk about this point, and then when you finish developing this point, you're going to go to the next point, which is this and this and this. That's how you can hold an absolutely fantastic conversation that you will not find yourself in the position of freezing when you are giving that presentation. So avoid avoid memorizing your speech. Rather, practice in such a way that you use bullet point to describe the different ideas that you want to develop about the subject or the topic that you are actually presenting. So that's the second solution to freezing. Now, the third situation where people freeze, it's simply when people are overwhelmed with the lot of things that are happening during that presentation. Now, when you are, sometimes you might practice at the comfort of your home. You are just by yourself, or maybe one person. Doesn't matter. When you practice oftentimes in the one environment, and you have to present in the different environment, that's when sometimes you can easily freeze, because now the new environment might introduce lots of different elements, lots of things that include you have not included in your practice, because you practice again in your home. You are familiar with every part of your home. You know that the window is there. As you practice, you might even look at the window. You know that the sofa is there. You know that this is there, this is there. You are familiar with that environment. Now, when you are to present in front of an audience, in that stage, there are a lot of things. There is audience sitting there. There's an exit door. There's a table there. There's light. Just the different things that are introduced in your delivering of that new presentation that was not, a lot of things that were not there before. That's why you can easily freeze, because these elements are new. So now, so much so that when your brain is trying to map out every single element in the room, you can easily lose track of thought. That's why you can actually freeze. And the solution of that is simply to be able, first of all, to practice enough that your body knows it better than your mind, that you would go into that automaticity of delivering your speech, no matter the new elements in the environment that is introduced in that place. You would not lose track of thought, because you are so focused, and your brain has developed this automaticity that no new stimuli would not really deter you from the line of presentation that you already have. So that's how you can recover it. And sometimes, the distraction can come from an audience too. You might prepare well. You might not memorize your speech. You might prepare in such a way that you have bullet point and everything. And sometimes just in the audience, somebody might do something that you have not anticipated. Maybe somebody has coughed in such a way that is so distracting, or maybe it could be just anything that may happen in the audience, right? That could possibly throw you off. And it happened to a lot of people. It happened to me so many times that something that happened in that room has distracted me. And if you have not practiced in such a way that your body knows it better than your mind, that you have practiced with bullet point, you can easily be thrown off. So that's why you got to be centered. You got to stay centered with the idea of the purpose of why you are presenting. You have to embody that speech in such a way that you are one with the speech, that no matter what happens in the audience, no matter the new element that is introduced in the environment, it would not deter you from the path that you are, because you are in fact on the mission, especially when you are to present a speech that can do so much good, not only for people, but maybe for you, because this is the speech. You depend on the speech to get that promotion. You depend on the speech to get that job. You depend on the speech to sell your product or service. That speech is everything for you. You got to stay glued in that speech. You got to really embody it, make it part of you, so that every fiber, if there's any scientific study, there would be a discovery that every fiber of your body, every cell of your body is tuned for you to deliver that speech in such a way that provide the outcome that you desire. So that's the actually third one, to the third reason why many people freeze, and that's the solution to practice again. Go back into, you see, there's sort of this collective steps to do to be in the position that you become a magnetic presenter. You got to practice it in such a way that your body knows it better than your mind. And when you practice it, don't memorize it, and you practice with the bullet point describing different ideas within that topic, and then you kind of embody, get glued to the idea that no matter what the stimuli, no matter what new element can introduce in the environment that you are talking to in, you will not be deterred, you will not be distracted from that. So the last reason why people freeze, it's simply because people are so nervous, right? And it's something that is natural. A lot of us are nervous. In fact, I've never seen any public speaker, whether you are at the highest level of your game or you are just starting out, that says that they are not afraid or maybe anxious or nervous. Although the degree of nervousness might be different, but everybody feels it. Everybody feels that butterfly tingle in the belly when they have to present in front of the crowd. And I shared in the previous video why that happens. It's simply because we have inherited that from our ancestors during the hunters and gatherers era. It was important that many people stay in groups. Staying in groups was the means of survival, was the means of survival. You see, when our ancestors used to live in the savannah, sharing the environment with the biggest predators ever, it was important that people stay in groups. So if you were to venture by yourself in the environment, you could easily pass for a tiger's lunch. That's why stay in the group was a mean of survival. And while it stayed in the group, it was important that you can be accepted by the group. Because if the group judge you to be somebody mischievous or somebody who doesn't belong to a group, they could cast you out of the group. And when you are cast out of the group and again find yourself alone in that savannah, you know what awaits for you. A to-the tiger. You could pass for a to-the tiger's lunch. So that's why people were afraid to say things in the group that can cause them to be cast out of the group. It was important to conform to the group. Saying something that is not to the group's liking could cause you to be cast out of the group. So now, after thousands of years, we have inherited that part of our brain from our ancestor. That's why there's a part of our brain called the limbic system that is responsible for the fight or flight response. We still have that. It's also called the ancestral brain. Even though after so many thousands of years, we have developed the frontal part of the brain that is called the neocortex, which is the reasoning part of the brain. And reasoning part of the brain only says that there's nothing to be afraid of. There is no to the tiger out there to pounce on you. There is no to the tiger to eat you. That's our frontal cortex that is telling us that. But we still have our limbic system that still thinks that there's danger in saying something in front of the crowd. So that's particularly the reason why we are so afraid to speak in front of the group, because literally it's a judgment that is going through our mind. There is nothing factual or real about that danger. It's not like when you're going to stand in front of the people going to eat you or people going to throw tomato at you. Let me say this so you can hear completely correctly and clearly. No one in the audience is there to harm you. No one in the audience is there to wish for your failure, that you fail at your presentation. People are so consumed about themselves. In fact, a lot of them in the audience are there asking, what is this presentation is going, what is this going to help me to become a better me, to go to that next level of life? That's what many people would be saying to themselves in the audience, but you are there thinking that they are judging you. And that's part of the reason a lot of us freeze. when we are in front of the crowd, simply because we are so gripped by the nervousness that we completely lose it. We lose track of, we lose the train of thought because we think that people are judging us, especially if we are doing a presentation and somebody's looking at us in such a way that we do not recognize a positivity in that regard, in that face. We would assume that maybe they are actually thinking that what we're saying is bad, or maybe it's not good, or maybe whatever going through our mind, but it's a story that is going through our mind. For instance, we might be seeing somebody looking at their phone. We would assume, although if you have a boring speech, people will check out. But it's not always what happens when somebody pick up their phone. They might pick up their phone to record something that you just say that landed with them. They might be recalling, just noting something that you just said that can help them with their lives. So the action of somebody in the audience is not always indicative of the fact that they are judging you. Maybe you are boring or other things. Although you could be boring and people would do that, but let's not assume that it is the case. It's not everybody who reaches for their phone. It's not everybody who looks at you in such a way that is telling you that maybe you are not doing a good job. So you have to be able to tune all of that out and concentrate on knowing that if there is somebody in the audience, if there are people out there, they are there just to listen to you, to learn what you're going to share with them that can help them improve their lives, the lives of their customers, the lives of their employees, the lives of their family. Just help them go to that next level of life for themselves. So you see, so that's how you can overcome nervousness and not be able to freeze. So now there's one solution that can apply to all of the scenarios of freezing, right? There's one thing that you can do. You have to be familiar with that thing, and it's called the pause. So whether you have not prepared enough, whether you have not prepared enough, whether you are nervous, whether no matter the situation that causes you to freeze, your next best friend is to pause. And pausing allows you to be able to take that time to record the last maybe sentence that you just uttered before you lose your train of thought. Pausing is almost everything that you can do to recover from freezing. You see, by pausing, sometimes when we pause, we might be even uncomfortable with what our pause. But one thing that you need to keep in mind that when you pause, the audience doesn't know if your pausing is intentional or not. That's when you're gonna leverage it because nobody knows if you have lost your train of thought. Only you know that. Only you know that you have lost your train of thought. So by freezing, you can convert that as a pause for the audience to catch up to what you are saying. It's so magical when you know how to do it. It's absolutely incredible when you learn how to do it. Now, what I'm saying is not that the very first time you're going to do it, it's going to be fantastic. No, what I'm actually saying here is that you start to practice pausing when you freeze during a presentation. You can practice even at the comfort of your home. You can incorporate some pauses in your practicing just to add that gravitas in your presentation. Because pause is an incredible technique when it comes to public speaking. So when you pause, you kind of invite people to lean in with what you just shared. When you pause, it is as though you are almost in the performance. I mean, you see, communication or public speaking is a performance. It's an art, in fact, that when you know how to perform it correctly, it's like it can be likened to a dance. It can be likened to a dance where you kind of have some movement, some flow, some movement of the body, of body parts that really together form this absolutely incredible performance. Pausing is everything in recovering from freeze. No matter what the cause of being frozen, using pause to your advantage is an absolutely fantastic way to really even add a gravitas to your presentation. Because as you pausing, I just said it, the audience doesn't know that you're doing it intentionally or not. But if you remember that, yes, pause is what you need to do at that time. During that time, it could be 2 to 3 seconds, but sometimes when you don't know what to do, it seems like an eternity when you're pausing 2 to 3 seconds. But if you remember about the benefit of pausing, now you can easily go back to the last sentence that you just said. You can really catch your breath. You can really repeat even the sentence a little bit to bring yourself to the position of recovery from that uh, from that thought that you were actually sharing. So that's a little bit, my friends, how you can, the reason why we freeze and how you can recover from them. Now, as I said, the very first one is when you are not prepared enough. When you are not prepared enough, it's highly likely that you will freeze because you will just lose it. You have not prepared enough. You would not know how to go about it, right? And how you can recover it or maybe avoid it altogether. Just prepare enough. Just enough time that your body knows it better than your mind. The second one is when you memorize your speech, you memorize your presentation. Yeah, it's a no in communication or public speaking because we all know that when you memorize it, if you lose just the one word somewhere in your recollection of your presentation, you would freeze because you would lose your train of thought. So practice it with using a bullet point to describe exactly the ideas that you are trying to convey. The third one is when you are overwhelmed by different elements that are in the room, maybe by the movements, the faces, the facial expressions of the people in the audience. There are so many elements that interplay compared to how you have practiced it. That's why practicing is the key. You embody your speech. It becomes part of you. You and your speech become one. That's why no matter what the distraction, no matter what's going on around you, you stand focused in what you are sharing. And the last one is simply we freeze sometimes because we are nervous. That anxiety is so overpowering. One thing that I want you to know to overcome that idea of nervousness is knowing that people in the audience are not there to judge you. They are consumed about their own life. They, in fact, are in the audience because they are hoping to get something that you're going to share that can help them one way or another. That's why they're there. That's why they're listening. So think about it. That will give you that little boost of energy, that little boost of confidence to be able to deliver it in such a way that is so wonderful. You know. So, and lastly, pause is really a powerful technique that you need to use to recover when that happens. The freeze happen. I mean, it can happen to anyone, right? You can prepare well enough. You can do all that I said, but there could still be occasions where you would feel something would happen and you would just lose your train of thought. What happens when you lose that train of thought? When you freeze mid-sentence or mid-presentation, you just pause. Just pause and observe. And use even that moment to share something, an anecdote, or something just random, or maybe a humorous, line that gives you a time to remember where you were before. So pausing is everything. And that would be the end of this absolutely fantastic subject. Why do we freeze, and how to recover, how to fix it when we are presenting in front of an audience? Once again, thank you so much for tuning with Elvis, speaking with Elvis. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so, because oftentimes, we hope that we can all form this community where we can exchange, because your listening gives me the uh, the motivation and the inspiration to keep bringing this content, this valuable content, that not only by sharing that with you, I know you can use that to improve your own life, but you can turn back and help another person that you've heard. That's what I've done. I've always done that. I can share an information, even if it doesn't apply in my life. I can have a friend next to me, or maybe a family member that I see they're going through that situation, and I can transfer that information, that knowledge that I've learned from a podcast, from a video, from somebody, an interaction with somebody, and that would improve them. That's why it's important to form the connection. So if you have not subscribed, please do so, so we can form that community. And you can even invite people to subscribe to this show. I'm just starting this show, and then we are in for a long haul, and then we are in to change our lives for good. And with that, thank you so much for tuning in. See you next time. Thank you.